Aggie here on 5:31 PI. I was sitting at 7:09. Well, the government has revealed its plan, aiming to end modern slavery and exploitation, in the workplace in Aotearoa. The new regulations are for small, medium and large companies to fill the gap in the country's legislation. So joining us now to have a talanoa about this is Minister for Workplace Relations and Safety. It's Michael Woods. With that, I say malo le. Welcome to the show this morning.
Hello, good to be with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Michael. I must say, for those who are not too aware of what this is about, maybe give us a bit of a background, like what is the current volume and type of modern slavery that we actually are seeing here in Aotearoa?
Well, modern slavery is a serious issue around the world and in New Zealand. The estimates from Amnesty International is that around the world, between 25 and 40 million people live in conditions of modern slavery. And sadly, we do know that there are cases in New Zealand. We had the Joseph Matamata case and conviction a couple of years ago, which has just gone through the appeals process, in which a group of extremely vulnerable Samoan workers were brought over to New Zealand and literally lived in slavery in our country, working in the agricultural sector. Just horrific stuff and totally inconsistent with our values as a country.
Which is great to hear, because like you said, you've touched on, the Samoan workers there. Reports often of our Pacific workers, right, being exploited in this area. What are then the steps that government is taking to ensure that our workers aren't actually being exploited and taken advantage of?
We've already had work underway in this area, and in the budget in 2019, we put $50 million into supporting our plan to reduce worker exploitation and modern slavery. That's gone into resourcing for the Department of Labour to make sure that we've got more labour inspectors, that we've got better coordination between labour inspectors and immigration. We've set up an 0800 number that people who are being exploited can call for advice and support. And critically, we've also established what we call a migrant exploitation visa, which means that if a worker who's here on a work visa, often the employer who's abusing them will say, well, if you speak up, I'll take your visa away.
Yes.
That worker can now call us, get put on a migrant exploitation visa, which is a safe haven for them, so they don't face that threat, and then they can raise their concerns and have them heard and dealt with by the authorities. And now, of course, we're moving ahead with this modern slavery legislation, which will put duties on employers to make sure that we don't have modern slavery and we don't have major breaches of employment conditions in supply chains.
Wow, that is real good to hear. If you're tuning in, we're catching up with Minister for Workplace Relations and Safety, Michael Woods. Michael, I'd love to ask, though, how confident are you, though, that these proposed changes really will drive that meaningful change?
Look, I'm confident they will make a really positive shift. We do know from the international evidence that modern slavery legislation of this kind can help bring the problem out into the light. Currently, it's often very hidden away in the shadows and people don't speak up about it. And what happens at the moment is that company A basically doesn't look into its supply chains and kind of turns a blind eye, doesn't listen. The obligations that we're putting in place around modern slavery and the duty to prevent breaches of employment standards will mean that companies have an obligation to act on information that comes to them, but also to be a little bit more active. And if I've got a relationship with an agricultural company and I'm receiving your products or you're franchising to me, I'll have some obligations to actually have a bit of a look and make sure that we don't have these abuses in the system. And we think that'll make a real difference.
Absolutely. And I think about, obviously, all the workers that may be affected by this. This is probably like music to the ears. But have you sort of received feedback from businesses, though, now that they will have to be active with these obligations?
Yes, we have. And what's really encouraging about this is that originally last year, this issue came in front of me. Partly it was a Labour Party manifesto commitment to do this work, but also we received a huge petition from World Vision and Trade Aid that had over 38,000 people signing up, asking us to take action. But also it included the signatures of over 100 major businesses who are coming to us and saying, we want the government to set a standard here, because as businesses, we want to have the assurance that we don't have modern slavery in our supply chains. Since then, we've had Rob Fife, the former chief executive of Air New Zealand in Kathmandu, heading up our modern slavery advisory group. It's had people like Commissioner Sumeo from the Human Rights Commission, businesses, unions, academics, all on it to develop up this approach to how we deal with modern slavery. So there's been great input from businesses and a range of other groups, and it means we've got a really robust proposal in front of us.
I like that. So if we think about consultation, though, on the proposals, I hear it's up until the 7th of June. What then, Michael, what type of feedback are you actually seeking, that will actually help shape this legislation?
That's right. People have got them to give us their views on these proposals. So we've put the documents out. They're up on the Employment New Zealand website. We want people to look through the proposals that we've given and tell us, have we hit it right? Are there things we could change and do better? So, for example, we've got what we call graduated responsibilities for small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and large businesses. And there are different obligations on each of them. Have we got the balance right between small, medium, and large? Are the measures that we've put in place in terms of reporting and businesses having to do due diligence, are they robust enough to really make the difference that we would need to see? So we're asking people to really look at those things and tell us, have we got it right, or can we make it stronger?
Nice. Thoughts just come to me though, Michael, with our Pacific community, if obviously they would love to give feedback, but where English is not sort of their first language, is there maybe someone they can speak to with their own, Pacific language to help them give feedback?
Yes, we certainly will be able to organise that both through our officials, but also through our team of Pacifica MPs and the Labour caucus. We'll be really happy to connect up with the community to make sure that the message gets out there and that we're hearing the voices come back in as well.
And just obviously a final message as we wrap up. Where do you want to see, I suppose, the level of modern slavery reports? Where do you want this to go? Like, how far can we take it?
Yeah, well, our goal is to end modern slavery. We shouldn't have any tolerance for these practices in our society or in our supply chains, but sadly it's there. So that's our goal. We want to make sure that these measures are robust enough that wherever it exists in New Zealand or supply chains, it comes to light and businesses can then take action to either stop it, and that can be through engaging with that organisation, making them change their practices, or if worst comes to worst, walking away and bringing the authorities in. We just don't want to see it happening.
Absolutely. Hey, and on that note, we just appreciate your time this morning, Michael. Really great that you're highlighting this and bringing it to light. And I think for a lot of our Pacific communities, they'll be really happy that this is in place. So thank you again for your time this morning.
Thanks, Aggie. Have a great day.
No worries. You too.